I am not going to bury the lead here. This book behind me is my favorite novel of 2025 so far. It is a queer gothic masterpiece that does so many things so perfectly. But before I talk about it, this video's sponsor is a particularly impressive and important one. And they've done something really cool for me and my audience in particular. Check this out. This video is sponsored by A Box of Stories, who have sent me one of their horror subscription boxes for me to unbox on camera in front of you. And before I do that, I need to tell you why A Box of Stories is such an important subscription box. See, there's something I've been thinking about for a while now, and I am gonna do a dedicated video about it, which is that there are too many books that get published, and I need to talk about why this is kind of a bad thing. And if you go on the A Box of Stories website and look at their mission statement, it says this: approximately 200,000 titles are published in the UK each year. Only 17% of these are lucky enough to make it to the bestsellers list, while the other amazing 83% remain undiscovered and are soon lost forever. We curate titles that have sold in decent numbers, after which our algorithm combines thousands of reader reviews to create boxes that are guaranteed to delight a book lover. This is something that is so integral to my own personal ethos when it comes to this channel. The vast majority of books go under the radar and deserve so much more attention than they get, and that's where A Box of Stories comes in. And what's unique about the bi-monthly horror book box that I'm holding right now is that it's only available to those who are already subscribed to A Box of Stories, and it's not available on their website anymore. But A Box of Stories are offering this exclusively to fans of my channel, which is so cool. Before I explain how that works, let's actually look inside so I can find out what they've sent me. Oh my god, this is so cool. Okay, so inside the lid is the mission statement that I just mentioned, and the first thing here is a letter. I've also got a tea bag from the tea people. This is moringa passion fruit and a black envelope. What's in here? Oh, cool. Got a pin badge. It says slightly sinister. Is this a sticker? I think it's a magnet. This is a magnet. I told you they were real. And an amazing piece of artwork. Oh my god, look at that. Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, wow. And another sealed envelope. Please do not bend. Oh my god, what's in here? See, this is the fun of getting a subscription box. I miss getting post. I don't get enough post. Oh, wow. Oh my god. These are art prints of folkloric creatures, and there are little explanations about what they are pinned to each one. Oh my god, isn't that lovely? Oh, wow! I'm really touched. And finally, we come to the books. As I said, there are 3 books in this box, and these 2, I've had my eye on both of these, and now I have them. This one I've seen on Titan's website. Here in the UK, Titan publish so much great horror all year round. But only some books can get the attention that they deserve, which is the whole point of this box. And this one I literally saw in a bookshop this morning. I'm not joking. So this is Schrader's Chord by Scott Leeds. This is also published by Titan. This is Where the Dead Brides Gather by Nuzo Ono. And this is Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang. This book's got a quote from Tananarive Du on the cover, which is very promising. Literally anything that Tananarive Du says about any book, you should pay attention to. And this one's got quotes from Nat Cassidy and Clay McLeod Chapman, 2 authors who I've never read before, but I've got both of them on my TBR, and they are big names in American horror. So horror authors are saying wonderful things about these books, and A Box of Stories are making sure that horror fans don't miss out on the good stuff that otherwise might slip through the cracks. This is so great. So key things to know about this particular subscription box. 1, it is a bi-monthly box. 2, for anybody who signs up to this, the box will be shipped on the 1st of June and then every other month after that. 3, you can cancel your subscription at any time. And 4, if you don't like it, you can return it for a refund, which is such a lovely thing for them to do. And exclusive to my fans, your first book box comes with an exclusive horror tote bag, which I didn't even get. And you get a lifetime time of free shipping. This is great. These guys go above and beyond. I am absolutely amazed. And if you want in on this, use the offer code WillowHorrorBox, all one word. Thank you so much to A Box of Stories for everything you do, for sending me this box, and for sponsoring this video. You're amazing. Speaking of horror and all things gothic, let's talk about Hungerstone by Kat Dunn, which is, as I said, my favorite book of this year so far. First of all, I've seen a lot of chatter online about the current book cover trend of putting big, bold, modern text over a gloomy painting that depicts either fruit or flowers. And I've got to be honest, it is my favorite kind of cover design, and I will never ever get sick of it. When I see a book in a shop with this kind of cover, I buy it. I will literally just throw money and run out the shop with it. Another common trend that we see with pretty much any book that we pick up these days is that there will be a quote before the book starts. Maybe the quote is of another author or a philosopher or something that kind of sets the theme, the tone, the mood of the book. This one starts with my favorite quote from one of my favorite films in the entire world, Robert Eggers's The Witch. And the quote is from Black Phillip, aka the Devil, and it says, "Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?" Oh god, I love that. Oh my god. I'm sorry, I hate ASMR, so if you hate it too, I really upset you just then. But oh my god, that line, I would get it tattooed on me. So what is Hungerstone? Well, it is a loose retelling of Carmilla. For those who don't know, Carmilla was the first vampire novel. It predates Bram Stoker's Dracula by a quarter of a century, and it was also written by an Irish man, Sheridan Le Fanu. And Carmilla was a pretty scandalous novel because it was a lesbian vampire novel, as is Hungerstone. This is an historic, gothic, queer vampire story, although the word vampire is never used, and it is a loose retelling of Carmilla. Now, we actually had a loose retelling of Carmilla not long ago, in the form of S.T. Gibson's An Education in Malice, which is an American work of dark academia. A lot of people were disappointed by this book, but I personally adored it. Hungerstone, however, does not mess about. This is a darkly sensual and sexy work of queer, gothic historical fiction, and in the most gothic way possible, it follows a protagonist whose name is Lenore. Lenore's husband, Henry, is a steel magnate. The novel is set in 1888, and at the beginning of the story, they move to Sheffield, which, for any non-Brits watching who don't know this, is known as the Steel City. Sheffield historically is a very working-class northern city with a deep and rich history of industry. Now, the original Carmilla, which I've got right here, is set in a castle in Austria. Our protagonist is a teenage girl who lives with her father, and she's really lonely. But one day, outside of their castle, a carriage overturns. Inside are a mother and daughter. The mother says, "Look, I've got somewhere to be," and she just kind of rushes off, and she leaves her daughter behind to recover from the shock and injury, etc. That daughter is Carmilla, and Carmilla is a vampire, and while she's living in the castle, she kind of seduces our protagonist. And Hungerstone follows a similar path. The moment Lenore and Henry arrive at their new home on the outskirts of Sheffield, they find a carriage overturned, and inside is a single person, Carmilla. In this novel, Lenore is around the age of 30, and Carmilla appears to be the same age, but she's also kind of ageless. She has this maturity about her, this impossible to define wisdom. She looks youthful and yet experienced, like she has seen so much, because she's a vampire. Although, again, that word is never used. And over the course of the novel, a lot happens, and yet nothing seems to happen. Because like any good gothic novel, it is so much about subtext and vibes. Carmilla worms her way into Lenore's life, whispering things to her and implying that certain things should be done. To make things even stranger, much like in the original, Lenore had a dream about Carmilla before the two of them even met. After a few days of Carmilla living with them in their big house, Lenore thinks back to this nightmare and how the woman that was in it surely was Carmilla. But that's impossible. As Carmilla settles into their home, strange things start to happen. At one point, they take a stroll out through the countryside, and they find a woman hunched over a live chicken, pinning it down and eating it. When she realizes she's being watched, she turns around and says, "I'm sorry. I was so hungry." And this happens again later in the novel, but it's worse and even darker this time around. Hunger is such an important motif in this book. It's in the title. But hunger for what and why and how? There isn't much more I can tell you without spoiling things, and I really do want to spoil things, so I'm going to. In a few moments, I'm going to put up a big spoiler warning so I can go into more detail about the things in the second half of the book that I really adored. If you're intrigued or you don't care about spoilers or you've already read the book, then stick around. If not, before you go, I just need to emphasize a few things. Hungerstone is special. Hungerstone spoke to me in particular at this moment in my life because I used to be a pretty hedonistic person. I used to travel a lot. I used to live kind of free. I would run away from my problems, run away from politics, run away from anything I didn't want to face. I would just live the best life that I possibly could. And for various reasons, the biggest one being COVID, my life has been more grounded over the past few years. I've come out as transgender, and that is becoming an increasingly terrifying thing to be. And Hungerstone reminded me of hedonism. It's a book that asks you, very upfront, for what do you hunger? And after asking that question, the book then explores what it means to answer it. It encourages you to live truthfully, to follow your hunger and satisfy it in a way that gives your life meaning and satisfaction. But obviously not at the cost of anybody else. You have to add that bit in yourself because this is a gothic horror novel. And in gothic fiction, people get hurt. But the message is still there. Figure out what you hunger for and eat it. And that entire message is delivered through queer liberation and through a gothic atmosphere that drips eerie creepiness. Something I love about gothic fiction is that it does kind of make me feel alive. Whether it's because something frightening is happening or because someone is doing a terrible thing, there is something enlivening about gothic fiction that makes you wake up and pay attention to your senses. And Hungerstone captures that so sublimely, which is a very apt word given how important the concept of the sublime is to gothic fiction. If you're a fan of horror, if you're a fan of gothic fiction, if you're a fan of historical fiction, and if you're a fan of queer fiction, Hungerstone is one of the best things on the shelf right now. Please go pick it up. Now I'm going to start spoiling things, so tune out if you don't want to know. There is a twist halfway through this book, which is that Lenore, by herself, without Carmilla's help, which is on purpose and important, figures out that her husband Henry has been steadily poisoning her. All throughout the novel, he's been gifting her with these tins of sweets, these colourful little treats. They're sweet, they're yummy, and they're coated in sugar. But Lenore starts to suspect that things aren't right with Henry, professionally. But also, maybe he's cheating on her with her best friend. I say best friend, she actually hates this woman, but you know how it is. And so, Lenore takes it upon herself to start rifling through his things, and what she finds is something she didn't expect. She finds a box full of these tins, all these sweets that she's been eating. And when she opens up these tins, she finds that, yeah, they're full of these sweets, but there's something different about them. They're not coated in this powdered sugar. And then next to the box, she finds an almost empty bag of poison. Cyanide, I think. So Henry has been buying these sweets, buying cyanide, and buying sugar, and mixing it all up, so that every day she has a sweet or two and she is steadily being poisoned. There is also a horrible moment about halfway through the book where Henry comes in drunk and takes Lenore. He doesn't quite force himself upon her, but I guess it depends on how you look at it and how you define it. It's 1888, he's her husband, and she knows that he will expect certain things that are her duty to provide for him, so when he comes knocking, she responds by kind of lying back American thinking of England. By today's standards, it is disgusting, it is upsetting, and it is honestly difficult to read. And the way that she just lies back is emblematic of the themes of the book. She does not hunger for Henry. And then you add on top of that the fact that he's steadily poisoning her, which has the implication that she's eating the wrong things. Yes, she is being literally poisoned, but that literal poison is an apt metaphor for the spiritual and emotional and intellectual poisoning that he is doing, that his capitalistic, heteronormative, traditional, conservative, married life is doing to her. She has been poisoned by social expectations. She's been poisoned by her marriage. She's been poisoned by the idea that we do these things because we do these things. This cycle of acceptance of marriage and conservative behavior and capitalist industry, etc., etc. And on the sidelines, standing there, is a young vampire woman offering Lenore not just a queer awakening, but a hedonistic one. Something that will remove her from all of the traditions and expectations that life with Henry represents and pushes upon her. With Hungerstone, Kat Dunn has proved that she fully understands the power of the Gothic to be something that is so rich with metaphor. And also, Gothic fiction, since its inception, with novels like The Castle of Otranto and Frankenstein and The Monk and Wuthering Heights, etc., etc., Gothic fiction has been punk longer than punk has ever existed. And Hungerstone is punk. It's a book about hedonism and queer liberation, going against traditional values, as well as patriarchy and capitalism, etc. On the surface, an historical novel doesn't feel like the kind of thing that is very punk, and yet it fully is. It asks you what you hunger for, and in order to answer that question, you may need to break free of your shackles. That's what's so inspiring about Gothic fiction and about Hungerstone in particular. I love this book with all my heart. It has reignited a passion for Gothic fiction, a genre that will always sit at the very center of my heart. And I've walked away from it wondering, what do I hunger for and how do I satisfy that hunger? And to top it all off, halfway through this book, there is the absolute sexiest intimate sex scene that I have ever read in my entire life, and I read the whole thing out loud to my partner. It is gorgeous. Every spicy romantasy book wishes it could do what Hungerstone does in that particular scene. Oh my Lord Satan, it is fire. Subscribe for books. I'm gonna go think about that scene.